Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we'll be playing a premiere draft of Innistrad Crimson Vow. This is going to be the flashback format for the week. Been quite some time since we've been able to draft Vow, but excited to hop back into it. This is another Innistrad set, so it's got all of the werewolves and vampires, spirits and zombies and all of that going on. You've got cards you can recast from your graveyard, like these spirits with Disturb. A lot of interesting mechanics like that. We've got blood tokens we can discard cards to draw cards with. A lot of cool stuff going on in this format. As for our pack 1 pick 1, we've got a Flame Blessed Bolt as an incredible red removal spell. That's our best common by far. Our uncommons are all a little bit weak, a little bit dirtily, a little bit slow. My favorite of those is the Gutter Skulker, but I think we have a pretty solid rare we can just scoop up here. Old Rutstein is a self-mill engine. You keep milling one card from your deck when it hits the board and during your upkeep, and every time you're milling a card, no matter what card type it is, you're going to get something off of Old Rutstein. You can get treasure tokens when you mill lands, you can get 1/1 insects when you mill creatures, and when you mill anything other than a creature land, you get blood tokens. So you get solid value from Old Rutstein no matter what's going on, so we can start with that and see where we go from there. For pack 1 pick 2, if we want to continue down the value train, there's a couple different creatures we could choose. Spore Crawler has a great death trigger, letting you draw a card when it dies, making it a 3-mana 3/2. That draws you a card as well, which is a pretty dang good deal. If it doesn't draw you the card, it's not the greatest, but not that hard to get a 3/2 to trade off with something. Doom Dissenter is another solid value creature with a good death trigger. Great to sacrifice to stuff because this replaces itself with a 2/2 zombie when it dies. So these would be the best follow-ups for Old Rutstein. I'll probably go with Spore Crawler to stick to Old Rutstein. I think the best card in this pack, though, is probably Resistance Squad, which is really nice for a deck with a lot of humans, but it also needs to be a deck that's playing white as well. And if we try to stick to Old Rutstein, we're going to be a green-black deck. Alright, pack 1 pick 3. Now the green and black options are Snarling Wolf and Ragged Recluse. Groom's Finery is pretty dang weak, even if you have a copy of Bride's Gown as well. That's just not going to be a very consistent way to make these equipment really worth it. So, yeah, I don't really like the on-color cards. We could take a Wedding Invitation because it can end up in pretty much any deck. Since it cycles itself away, it draws you a card for 2 mana every time, no matter what. However, I think I am going to go ahead and pull the trigger on the second Resistance Squad here. Because again, as I said before, it's a very good value play, similar to Spore Crawler, where it's a 3-mana 3/2 that's going to draw you a card. This one, you need to have another human on board, but you do get the card draw immediately, so I think it is, in the right deck, a little better than the Spore Crawler. And we'll take it this time since there's really was nothing else to go with it there. Pack 1 pick 4, we see a Sigarda's Summons, which is a decent sign that white isn't getting drafted super highly. However, this is a really inconsistent card. I am not a very big fan of Sigarda's Summons. The problem with this card is it's a 6-mana enchantment that's not going to give you any extra creatures or anything. It's just going to make your ones that do have counters on them better. So you need to put in a lot of work for this to do anything, and when it does do things, usually it's going to turn 1, maybe 2 of your creatures into 4/4 flyers at their base power and toughness, which is good, but if you think of it as like an aura or 2, it's pretty bad because you're committing 2 cards into one thing. I don't know, I'm very low on Sigarda's Summons, even though it's a rare. That being said, the pack's still pretty weak, so I might roll with it here to go with our Resistance Squad, but I think this card is highly overrated generally. Pack 1 pick 5, we have a Kindly Ancestor and Valorous Stance. So pretty happy to be taking white cards here, even if I don't love the last one that we took. I think I'll take Valorous Stance here, although Kindly Ancestor is one of white's best commons. 3 mana for a 2/3 lifelinker is fine, but it also disturbs into an aura you can recast from grave to give another one of your creatures lifelink, so it's just really hard for aggressive decks to outrace you when you have a guaranteed just large amount of lifelink going on throughout the game. That being said, efficient instant speed removal is always going to be a really high pick, and Valorous Stance is certainly that. It's very flexible as well. You can use it to protect your own creatures from dying in combat or dying to removal spell. Pretty happily take a Drogskull Infantry now, great 2-drop for white. 2 mana 2/2 that you're always happy to trade off, because once you do, you get this decent aura into your graveyard. It's pretty inefficient, 4 mana for +2/+2, but you're stacking on that extra card to the 2 mana 2/2, so 2 cards that wouldn't be great by themselves, but when it's a 2-for-1, when you get both of those cards off of just this one piece of cardboard, you're getting a lot of good value off it. So I'll take Drogskell Infantry. Could also take Courier Bat here if I wanted to be black-white life gain, as we saw last pack with the life-linking Kindly Ancestor. There is a good amount of lifelink and life gain in the format for cards like Courier Bat. Pack 1, pick 7. Super weak pack. Piercing Light is not the most flexible removal. It's not going to kill anything mid-game or later. Things are just going to be quite large and too big for Piercing Light to kill, unless you 2-for-1 yourself, where you block with a creature and then finish off their creature with a Piercing Light, so not a super big fan of that. I do like Pointed Discussion. Chill of the Grave is good as well, but we're not really in blue at all. I'll take Pointed Discussion here. Heron Blessed Sky is another card. It's fine top-end filler, but not a super exciting pack there. Going for the Pointed Discussion, because if we go towards black-white, or if we somehow stick to black-green with Old Rutstein, this card will be fine in the deck. There's another Spore Crawler, pick 8, which is pretty good in green. I think Courier Bat would work better if we end up in black-white, but Spore Crawler could go for green-white or green-black, and I think it's a better card just by itself. Very nice value card. Okay, this pack is pretty empty. All of these cards are quite weak, even if we were in red or blue. I'll just take the Snarling Wolf to send a message. And for pack 1, pick 10, we can take a Wedding Invitation because it fits in the deck no matter what. Persistent Specimen can do some stuff if you have a ton of cards that sacrifice creatures. Then it could be okay. I don't think Dread Fugue is great. 4 mana, make your opponent discard any card. I don't know, maybe it's okay, but I'll just take Wedding Invitation. Take the flexible colorless card. Now we'll take the filler 5-drop white card, the Heron Blessed Geist. And now we have 1 card to synergize with Sigarda's summons. Let's go. Unholy Efficient. An incredibly inefficient card that requires 5 mana to get a single +1/+1 counter. One of the slowest mana sinks in the format. Unholy Efficient is a pretty bad card, and if that's the only thing we end up with that works with Sigarda's summons, there's no way we're playing the Sigarda's summons. This rare, however, pack 2, pick 1, is much, much better. Welcoming Vampire. It's a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. Whenever one or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. You only get that trigger once per turn, but it is much easier to have a deck full of power 2 or less creatures than it is to have a deck full of creatures that get +1/+1 counters. Welcoming Vampire, a super consistent, super powerful card that would be a great card in any draft format. Take that Welcoming Vampire. Now we have a Bleed Dry out of black, which is excellent removal. We also have Traveling Minister in white though, and we're definitely playing white, and this is a very nice card. It can just make combat stack up really favorably for you while giving you 1 piece of life gain every turn for anything that cares about life gain triggers. So if your board state is you have a 2/2 and then your opponent drops a 3/3, usually you're going to get walled off by that for the rest of the game, but with Traveling Minister, all of a sudden your 2/2s get to attack into their 3/3s, your 3/3s get to attack into their 4/4s. This can just make so many disadvantageous board states so much better for you. So I actually like Traveling Minister enough to take it here. I don't think it's as good as Bleed Dry, or as good as Dormant Grove even, if we wanted to take a green or black card for going green-white or white-black, but it is not that much worse, and it's in a color that we are 100% to play, instead of the kind of 50-50 between black and green that we're on right now. Pack 2, pick 3, we have a Nurturing Presence, which is fine if you have a lot of creatures in your deck. Stack on those +1/+1 buffs till end of turn. Yeah, 2 mana 1/1 flyer and get a little bit extra damage in with those enter the battlefield effects. Card is fine. Syncopate is a great counterspell in this format because of the ability to exile whatever it counters as well. Scattered Thoughts is great card draw. Dawnheart Disciple, Ragged Recluse aren't the greatest creatures. Massive Might's a fine combat trick. Yeah, I don't know. The off-color stuff isn't that exciting. Here, I'll take Nurturing Presence. Pack 2, pick 4. I guess I'll take another Nurturing Presence. We might try to be the 4 copies of Nurturing Presence stack. These are cards that stack up really well, where you can start putting the Nurturing Presences onto the Spirit tokens so that you get extra flying damage in. Could be interesting. Pack 2, pick 5. We've got a Heron of Hope, which plays very well with Traveling Minister, as well as any other life gain. Weaver of Blossoms, which is solid mana fixing and mana ramp out of green. I'll just take the Heron of Hope. Alright, pack 2, pick 6, whatever, let's just go for it. Let's do weird, stupid things. I'm just going to play every single copy of Nurturing Presence that gets passed to me. And that will be our win condition, just a bunch of random spirits in the sky. Well, I think I've decided the deck name. Alright, pack 2, pick 7. Yeah, this is all pretty weak stuff. I suppose I'm unlikely to play Persistent Specimen or Vampire's Kiss in white-black. I'm definitely not playing Militia Rallier in anything, so I'll just take Sharpshooter in case we end up in green. We got a pick 8 Traveling Minister. Let's go. I'm very happy to be in white in this draft pod. Arm the Cathars isn't the greatest card ever, but it is kind of a finisher. Probably heavy enough into white to scoop that up over Falconwrath Celebrants. Suppose if I open up like a really good red rare or mythic, we could still push into red because I have so much white. I should go Celebrants here. Not married to being green or black as the secondary color. Now we could take another random red card. I guess I have weak enough removal I could just take a Lacerate Flesh here. It's not a good removal spell, but when you're low on removal, it'll make the cut. Okay. Back 2, pick 11, we'll take the green human. Because if we do play green-white, we're going to want more humans with Resistance Squad. And I don't think I'm trying to go blue here with that Scattered Thoughts. Take a Belligerent Guest. Potential red-white. Reckless Impulse for card draw for potential red-white. Yeah, we could be red-white, could be green-white. Doesn't look like we're going to be black-white in the end here. Okay, so here's our creatures, here's our non-creatures, and then there's our green and our red. Yeah, I guess it depends on what we open. Maybe we'll get a sweet rare in green or red, and that can make the decision for us. Alright, Alchemist Gambit is not a sweet rare. You need to be blue and red for this not to just lose you the game. The idea behind these effects is when you have lethal in 2 attacks, you can play this and then get 2 attacks in a row. But the problem is that's pretty narrow. That's not something that's going to occur every game. And any game that you draw this and you're on the defensive where getting an extra turn isn't going to immediately win you the game, then you just can't cast this card at all. Because the only time you can cast it is when that extra turn is going to win you the game. So you have to already be ahead and in a position where attacking twice will finish your opponent off. So not in love with it. I'll take Sigarda's Imprisonment, which is great removal, and we're very low on removal. So come on in, Sigarda's Imprisonment. Speaking of removal, when we are low on removal, let's just take a Flame Blessed Bolt here and I guess commit to red-white. Suppose I probably wasn't keeping my eye open enough on secondary colors last pack to where I don't remember what I took over it, but I think I took a green or a black card over the Markov Waltzer, which is like a 4-mana 1/3 flyer. That's a red-white card, but it's a very good one because it like gives a creature +1/+0 and haste every turn, something like that. This thing, Markov Waltzer. I passed one of these last pack for I think a green or a black card, and then obviously now I've ended up taking some red stuff, so a little sad about that. Do I want to take this one or do I want to take a Flame Blessed Bolt? It's actually pretty close. Because again, my removal is not incredible. It's looking okay. 1 bolt, 1 stance, 1 imprisonment, 1 lacerate flesh. I'll take the Waltzer over the Flame Blessed Bolt here. I think that's a strong, aggressive card to slap into the deck. For pack 3, pick 4 now, we've got a whole lot of nothing. Guess there's a Fearful Villager, or a Sure Strike, a Combat Trick, or a Menace creature. Both are pretty filler, but Militia Rallier is pretty bad. I don't need another 5-mana creature. And Hypnotist is pretty narrow. I don't have enough blood tokens for that to be super exciting. I guess I could just take an Evolving Wilds, but I still need 2 more non-land cards at least. Let's grab a Fearful Villager. Another Nurturing Presence. A lot of these have been getting passed around, so we might be able to wheel this one. Plus, I already have 3 copies, so I'm actually going to take Fierce Retribution over that for another great removal spell. 2 mana to destroy an attacking creature is really cheap. And then if you need to kill something that has a good ability and is just sitting there not attacking, then you can do that. For 6 mana, you can destroy any creature. So that is an excellent removal spell. Okay, let's get Sigarda's Summons out of here. That is not going to happen. Guess I could take a Child of the Pack. If I do wheel some of those Evolving Wilds, we could splash this in as a very good mana sink, a much better mana sink than the Unholy Efficient. Again, not going to play Militia Rallier or end the festivities. Unlikely to play the Child of the Pack, though. Alright, we've got a Griff Rider, a Kindly Ancestor for solid 3 drops. Twinblade Geist is a solid 2 drop. Twinblade Geist with a Nurturing Presence on it's super scary and hilarious, so I think I'll take the Twinblade Geist. But I could see a pretty good argument for Kindly Ancestor. I do love this card a lot. But we'll take Twinblade Geist. We're the triple Nurturing Presence deck. Let's get the presences onto the Twinblade Geist. Another Resistance squad, but my human count is actually pretty low here, so they're not going to be the most consistent card draw, but I'll still take one here. This will be my 5th human. They're still probably better than most of the other stuff. I guess I'll take a 2-mana 2/2 human just to up that human count. I'm not going to play Bloody Betrayal in this deck. We don't have any sacrifice. There are some good sacrifice cards in this format, so Bloody Betrayal can work really good in like red-black. Don't really think I want to do it here. Alright, I'm not going to be in love with these Vampire Slayers, but I think I'm still going to run them to have a more aggressive curve and more humans in the deck. Yeah, this is awkward, but I think I'm going to play double Vampire Slayer over Blood Petal Celebrant, which is kind of crazy because usually I'd far prefer the Celebrant. But 2 resistance squads, we really want to trigger those, ideally. I don't think I'll be playing a Sure Strike. Oh, I've got a 2nd copy if I really want to play those. I'm not going to be main decking and end the festivities. There are a few decks in this format that can make a bunch of 1/1 tokens that end the festivities, can do 1 damage to all of them. But it's not enough decks that it's always going to be viable. So there'll be plenty of games where we have an end the festivities stuck in our hand doing nothing if we main deck it, and I don't want to be in that position. So we have 15 creatures, but we also have 3 Nurturing Presences. So we have basically 18 creatures, which is a lot. That is plenty. We're doing good there. But it's also not like too many. 15 to 17 is the general count. I think I can just cut maybe like Reckless Impulse, Wedding Invitation here. Just cut some of the card draw and just use some blood tokens. Not that we have a lot of blood tokens, but we have Celebrants and Lacerate Flesh and Sigarda's Imprisonment. So we have a few. We have Welcoming Vampire for card draw, Resistance Squad for potential card draw. I don't think I need to be on the Reckless Impulse game plan. Just drop those 2. Call it a deck. Alright, here's a look at our final deck list for today. We're going to be on a white-red aggro deck. Primarily on white. White was looking pretty open in our draft pod, and we got a bunch of sweet cards in the color. Some of the best commons and uncommons in the format for sure. Couple Traveling Ministers here that make it so that we can get into combat really well, with our smaller creatures getting that additional power to be able to attack in and trade up into their larger blockers, or to just get extra damage through. The whole time we gain life while we're using this ability as well, which makes it pretty hard for other aggressive decks to race against us and try to outpace our damage output. So Traveling Minister's great. We also have 3 Nurturing Presence, which is a deceptively good card in the format. Doesn't look like much, because usually auras are pretty bad, but this is more like a creature than it is an aura. It's basically a 2-mana 1/1 flyer that stacks on some extra power to another one of your creatures every time you're playing creatures that turn. So the turn you play this, whatever you put the aura onto hits for 1 more damage. And then after that turn, you're sending in a 1/1 flyer and getting a little bit of extra damage throughout the game. So Nurturing Presence plays pretty well, especially if we can slap a copy or 2 on something like a Twin Blade Geist here, so we can start buffing up our Double Striker. So that could be pretty fun. We also have a few filler humans in this deck. We have 2 Vampire Slayer, Fearful Villager. We have 2 really good humans. But with all those, we're trying to potentially draw extra cards off of a couple copies of Resistance Squad, which will draw us a card when they enter the battlefield if we control another human. So a great value play there. Speaking of great value plays, our strongest card in the deck is probably Welcoming Vampire, the 3-mana 2/3 flyer that draws us cards every time we're playing more 2-power or less creatures, which we have plenty of in the deck. Outside of that, a little bit of nice flyers higher up on the curve, like Heron of Hope, Markov Waltzer, and Heron Blessed Geist. And then a little bit of blood token production for the card advantage in this deck. The Falconwrath Celebrants, Lacerate Flesh, Sigarda's Imprisonment, also giving us a blood token. So that's pretty much the deck. Outside of that, it's just our removal spells, Flame Blessed Bolt, Valorous Stance, Fierce Retribution, Imprisonment, Lacerate Flesh. Pretty basic stuff today, but it looks like a pretty solid deck in general. Pretty excited to play with the deck, so without further ado, let's just head into the gameplay and see how it does. Alright, here we are for game 1. We have a pretty solid curve here. Our mana curve goes all the way up from 2 to 5 if we keep hitting lands. Our opponent is going to start with a Persistent Specimen, so that's a little bit of a roadblock for us, since it can keep coming back from the graveyard to the battlefield. And they are on black-red, which is the primary sacrifice archetype in the format, if you want to steal your opponent's creatures and sacrifice them. Blue-black is the archetype all about sacrificing your own creatures in this format. But black-red, technically, the signpost uncommons and everything are based around vampires and blood tokens and stuff. But there's definitely a black-red sacrifice deck where you can steal your opponent's creatures and then sacrifice them. Alright, well, they're keeping the board clear pretty well, but they're only hitting us for 2 damage a turn, so we're doing fine. We have hit all the lands that we need to keep playing our handout until turn 5. So that'll be pretty nice. Ooh, no spells cast turn 3 means that we get a 4/3 menace now. Drop the Markov Waltzer and hit as hard as possible here with that beginning of combat triggered ability. They are going to double block. We'll see if they have another spell to cast to win this combat. They probably do. Okay, well, not one to win the combat, but maybe some kind of burn spell for post-combat. Or they just want to stop the 5 damage, because 5 damage is a lot. Alright, they just wanted to stop the damage, fair enough. We got that Undead Butler out of the way, at least. But they did soak up 5 points of damage with it. 4 mana is when they have access to Bleed Dry. That is black's best removal spell in this format at common. 2 black and 2 more mana to give -13/-13 to something. They are going to go for an Innocent Traveler, though. That turns into a 3/3 flyer. That's about it. Basically a 4-mana 3/3 flyer. If we play any humans, or if they flip our werewolf back to being a human, then that's actually going to be a 5/3 flyer, which is pretty deadly. But when that happens, when that occurs, I can just drop an imprisonment on that and we'll be fine. So let's just cast the Heron Blessed Geist. And save the imprisonment for later. Just stack as much damage onto the board as we can right now. They're just gonna pass the turn. Well, I feel like it's going to be better to imprison the invader than it is to cast a Heron of Hope right now. I mean, that threatens lethal on board. No, it puts them to 1 life. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 more damage from the Waltzer ability. This attacks for 10 damage by casting Imprisonment this turn. It's still very much worth it. Let's spread the power around so we don't have one creature that's massively bigger than the rest. So they can only clear out 1 of the 4 power creatures instead of clearing out a 5 power creature on the attack. Okay, they're going to clear out the flyer because it is a spirit, which means that the Rending Flame will get me there. Oh, I wish I had 1 more mana. Just get my 2/1/1 flyers off of this. If I cast Resistance Squad, then the Fearsome Werewolf goes back to being a 2/3. Because 2 spells will have been cast this turn. But then I have another attacker, but that attacker just gets blocked by a Persistent Specimen. I guess not if they play another blocker. If they play another blocker, then they double block Werewolf. And then Resistance Squad gets in. Yeah, I guess I should probably play it. Feels pretty bad, but when our opponent's at 5 life, I think we need to keep playing the creatures to pressure their life total. Yeah, now when they just tap out for another creature, we can still just go wild here. Because I could buff the Waltzer and the Villager. And then I think they're dead. Because 2 damage gets in no matter what, and they can only block 1 of the 2 creatures on the ground, which means that an extra 3 damage gets in. Perfect. Yep, that's perfect. That's dead on board. 5 damage, and that is gonna be game. We're gonna start off 1-0 heading into game 2. Here we are now in game 2. Our opponent's on the play. This is a really awkward hand, because we really need to hit a land, and even if we do, I don't have a human for Resistance Squad, I don't have a creature for Nurturing Presence, and then it's 5 drops. I need to draw pretty perfectly here for the hand to work well. If I draw into like a Traveling Minister, then the hand's beautiful. If I draw Traveling Minister, then basic land. Then I play Traveling Minister turn 1, then Nurturing Presence turn 2, then Resistance Squad turn 3, and we're living the dream. Just gonna keep here. I'm gonna believe in Magical Christmas Land. We at least hit the 3rd land, which is a good start. Playing against Jund. Twin Blade Geist, that works. The hand isn't perfect still, because we don't have the human. But now we've got something to actually play turn 2 where the Nurturing Presence could be played. Alright. Our opponent is aggro. Daybreak Combatants coming in. Go for it. I'll go down to 14. Another Resistance Squad. That's a little awkward. Oops, I have accidentally minimized Arena. Alright. Let's plop a Plains down. They're on black and red, which are both removal heavy colors. If I just Nurturing Presence into them having a 1 mana like Flame Blast Bolt or something on the Geist, it's going to play real poorly. Guess I'll just hit for 2 this turn. Set up some potential card draw if I can run out another Resistance Squad next turn. We can just use them to trigger each other. I bet somebody's drafted a deck before where they've had no humans but like 4 copies of Resistance Squad. And it's like, well, if I draw my 2nd Resistance Squad, then I get to draw a card. Alright, there's land 4. I do like that. They probably have like a Bleed Dry or an Abrade up to kill something with. In which case they could kill it in response to me trying to cast Resistance Squad anyway. So let's just attack in. first and guarantee I get some damage in, and then try to cast Resistance Squad. And now if they do kill the first Resistance Squad in response, I still got damage in. Okay, no removal. Here's a mountain. Not going to use any blood tokens either. Wedding security. Well, that explains the lack of blood tokens being used there. Let us... This is 4 toughness or greater, right? Yeah, we'll blow up the wedding security and play Nurturing Presence. That's the most mana efficient play that we have this turn, and it threatens a lot of damage as well. And they could trade into one of our resistance squads, but they can't kill our Twin Blade Geist on this attack, which means they're going to take quite a bit of damage this turn. They're down to 8 now, and the board state is cleared. The path is clear for some future damage. They're going to start using their blood tokens to dig for some more creatures, some blockers, some removal. Anything to keep their life total up here. Crack another blood token. Play their land for the turn. They've got 4 mana left after using 2 blood tokens. And they may have removal for Twin Blade Geist here, but if they do and it doesn't exile, then I can just make my 3/2 a 3/2 double strike, which is massive. Alright, so let's go land, and let's go Celebrants over the Heron Blessed Geist, I think. All of our removal is sorcery speed here, so there's no reason to hold one up, so we just play a creature pre-combat to trigger Twin Blade Geist's Nurturing Presence. I think the Menace creature, it's a little bigger, and it gives us blood, so I'll go for that over the Flyer against an empty board. If they had like a few 1/1s on the ground or something, I'd probably go for the Flyer, but we'll go for the Celebrants. It still has a form of evasion. They'd still have to double block it to block it. Okay, they do have a Braid for the double striker, but they take 4 damage this turn, having their life total. And I have a double strike enchantment in my graveyard that I could put on something. Which I don't even think I'd really need to since they're at 4 life, but I guess putting it onto a 1/1 flyer makes that 1/1 flyer deal 2 damage to them a turn, so it kills them in 2 swings. They're already dead on board though, since they can't block the Falconwrath Celebrants. And they are just going to scoop them up there, so we are going to be 2-0. Very good stuff from our aggressive Boros deck. See if we can take it all the way to victory, or at least to the break-even point. 2-0 now, heading into Game 3. Here we are for Game 3. This hand's beautiful if we draw planes. We don't draw any lands, then we don't do anything. I think I take the mulligan. On the play here, I think I take the mulligan. On the draw, I might get greedy with that one. I might be wrong to draw Parent of Hope, but I like the idea of turn 2 Infantry, turn 3 Villager, turn 4 Resistance Squad. So I'll just use this as my 4 mana card. Alright, we're playing against mono white so far with a Fleeting Spirit on the board. Later in the game, that can give itself first strike. For now, it can just get exiled and come back to the board tapped to save itself. Or no, it doesn't come back tapped, it just comes back during the end step. Okay. We are playing against a blue-white. Blue and white in the format are going to be the colors with the most spirits. The cards with Disturb that give you these auras you can cast from the graveyard. So a very good color pair for grinding out a long game. A lot of 2-for-1 value because a lot of their creatures will just die into other good stuff. So far, it looks like they're just general white aggressive stuff, kind of like our deck. Except in the blue-white direction instead of the red-white direction. I suppose they could double block and kill Fearful Villager, but the odds of them wanting to do that are super low. They'd trade 2 of their creatures into just 1 of ours. That seems like not something they'd want to do. So let's just attack with everybody and play Resistance Squad post-combat. I guess there's really not a reason not to just play Resistance Squad pre-combat, but most of the time it's better to cast your stuff post-combat, so your opponent has as little information as possible when they're choosing to declare blocks. Alright, we did draw into enough lands to play the Celebrants next turn, which is pretty sweet. And all their creatures only have 1 toughness, so this matchup actually looks like it would be pretty sweet for that End the Festivities we kept in the sideboard. 1 damage to our opponent and all their creatures. Just brush all these tiny cards off the board. Just get that out of here. 1 toughness cards. Alchemist's Retrieval. They're going to bounce our Resistance Squad, which means we get to draw another card, recasting it. Oh, they're going to make it come into play tapped, though? No, that's just the back half. Okay. They're just going for damage there. Buff that up to get some really good training going. Yeah, that's spooky. Dang, yeah, I see what they're going for here, so just going for damage. They're cool with losing the card advantage long game, just by pushing in for as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible. If that's the case, I think I just play my most expendable creatures to block and trade with the Fleeting Spirit. They need 3 cards in their graveyard to give it first strike. So I think I'm going to have Vampire Slayer trade into the Fleeting Spirit, so we go Welcoming Vampire, Vampire Slayer, and I would still draw a card this turn. And this leaves me free to attack with these 2 right now. Because we're not going to be able to do anything against their Griff Rider. It's going to attack as a 4/3 next turn. So we need to be able to outrace that. So getting a wide board state while still drawing a card, getting something to trade into the Fleeting Spirit, feels like where I want to be. Find land number 6. Worst case scenario, we can discard that to one of our blood tokens from Celebrants. Best case scenario, we draw into a good 3-mana card and we get to play Resistance Squad and that card next turn. So they do Circle of Confinement the Welcoming Vampire. But I do get to keep the Vampire Slayer to trade into the Fleeting Spirit to get that out of here, but that means my creatures enter the battlefield tapped now. Which is annoying, but it's not as bad for me as that Fleeting Spirit was, or would be once they have the ability to give it first strike. So I have a Flame Blast Bolt that's not big enough to kill their flyer. But I could play a Celebrants and hold up the Flame Blast Bolt, take 4, go to 5. It's going to be a close race here. It's going to be a tight race for sure. We've got lethal on board, but we're going to have to be able to get through all their creatures that they hold up as blockers, and we'll see how many they play here. If we're lucky, they play stuff that dies to Flame Blast Bolt. Sigarda's Imprisonment, we no longer have lethal on board, but they take 3 turns to kill us with Griff Rider, so we're still winning the race by a tiny bit. Because we need to hit them twice, they need to hit us 3 times. If they have anything to buff the Griff Rider, though, we are going to die next turn. So we are really fingers crossed that they don't. Unless I crack some blood tokens to discard this bolt to look for something else, but I don't think that's right. Heron Blessed Geist. Now they need something that buffs the Griff Rider and kills the Heron Blessed Geist to kill us. So I am pretty sure that is what we play. Oh my god, never mind. I forgot about the come to play tap thing. Alright. We were supposed to play Resistance Squad there then. Unlikely to have mattered. Because I think there's only like 1 card in our deck. that Resistance Squad could draw into that could save us from Griff Rider getting buffed up. I guess there's two. Yeah. We could have hit our Destroy Target Attacking Creature spell or our Destroy Target Creature with Toughness 4 or greater spell. So that was the wrong play. I just kind of brain farted and forgot about the Radiant Restraints there. So we should have played Resistance Squad because any creature hitting this board would have given us lethal on our next attack. So we might as well play the one that draws us a card to give us another potential piece of interaction to make sure that we survive our opponent putting an aura on the Griff Rider. Because if I just slam down Heron Blessgeist and then they just play Nurturing Presence or something and attack me for 5, I'm dead. With Resistance Squad, we get one extra chance to draw into two of these 26 cards. So a 1 in 13 chance. That is not a good number. That's an unlucky number, but a 1 in 13 chance that we would draw into the 2-mana Destroy Target Attacking Creature or 2-mana Destroy a Creature with Toughness 4 or greater to be able to survive the Griff Rider attack. Now, we were lucky there. They didn't have an aura or anything, so we don't get punished for it, but those are the kinds of really moderate, like 1% increase in our odds of victory kind of plays that can stack up. So that was definitely a misplay, but not like a massive punt or anything. So yeah, they didn't have the trick, or the aura. So we do make it in the end, and we are now 3-0. Great place to be. The jump in prizes between 2 wins and 3 wins is pretty massive. We're now guaranteed at least 1,000 gems back out of the event. But if we can keep it going, we'll be at the break-even point 1 win from now, and then potentially just in the money. We'll see how it goes heading into round 4 now. Here we are now for game 4. We've got the 1-2 punch again, Twin Blade Geist and Nurturing Presence. Plays pretty poorly if they can just blow up the Twin Blade Geist, but if they can't, that could be a large double striker quickly. So let's slam it down. I think I'd rather play Fearful Villager into Resistance Squad first, but maybe I'm supposed to just push all the damage in that I can. Well, never mind, because I cannot get through a catapult fodder. And I drew into a Welcoming Vampire, so do I just run that out? Fingers crossed, no removal? Or do I still run out the Fearful Villager and try to draw removal on other spells? I'm just going to go for it here. No Bleed Dry. One time, let's go. No Bleed Dry every time. Let's play against only opponents with 0 removal spells in their deck. Necroduality. Well, that's not a removal spell, but it's pretty frightening. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under their control, they create a token copy of it. So every zombie they cast for the rest of the game, they're going to get 2 of, which is really not ideal, I would say. So that's spooky. Let's drop Fearful Villager holding up a Flame Blessed Bolt. That'll draw me a card off Welcoming Vampire and set up for a Resistance Squad to draw a card when it hits the board. And then potentially next turn I can play Resistance Squad and Nurturing Presence. Should just send damage in. We're going to need to play a bunch of flyers. I don't think we're going to be able to get through their ground troops if all their zombies are going to be doubled up. Geralf Visionary Stitcher. Okay, that's not a zombie. It does make zombies, but the zombies it makes are tokens. Okay, so this, when it hits the board, Necroduality is going to make a zombie of it. A copy of it. Do I just Flame Blessed Bolt that? I guess they could exploit the copy if they want. And even if I hit that before Necroduality resolves, they'll get a copy. Wow. Yeah, this is a nightmare. I guess Valorous Stance gets to kill Geralf, so that's what we're going to do. Clear the sky, and then Valorous Stance... Geralf? I mean, I guess Valorous Stancing Geralf clears the sky. I don't need to Flame Blessed Bolt anything. But should I to be mana efficient? Yeah, I also kind of want to whittle down their board state a bit. So I could maybe get through at some point. I'm going to use the Flame Blessed Bolt while I have the mana for it. I guess my odds of drawing a land next turn are pretty high. I'm at about 46% chance of land right now. per draw, and I'm going to draw 1 per turn, 1 from Nurturing Presence, so I've got 2 shots on a coin flip, basically, to hit a land, and then I could play Presence, Valor Stance, and still have Flame Blessed Bolt up if I need it. Might be okay. Drawn to a Fierce Retribution. Okay. So Nurturing Presence and Valor Stance on Geralf. Man, I kind of want to Nurturing Presence the Twin Blade Geist because I don't want to just stack everything up on Welcoming Vampire, but I think it's the only thing I know is going to get in this turn. We did not hit the land, so we don't get to hold up Flame Blessed Bolt. Alright, well I still kill Geralf. Alright, there's the hero's downfall for the Welcoming Vampire. But they're down to 1 card in hand. They just have a couple 2/2s on the ground. Yeah, we can just keep playing flyers. Markov Waltzer's a great draw, because that means I don't need the land to play the flyer here. And it has haste, so we just chip in. They're down to 11. That is a lot of our victories today, is by chipping in with a lot of flying or menacing damage. Our evasive threats have played really well. Pretty big fan of our position. Like, if they draw a really good zombie... Oh, God. They drew a really good zombie. I was going to say, if they draw a really good zombie, we could be in a bad spot, but we have a lot more cards in hand than they do. I guess if I sack Twin Blade Geist, I get to put Double Strike onto a flyer. But then they get to start racing us on the ground. But I think I keep the flyers and let them race. They hit for 10 on the ground. It is what it is. We're going for it. Okay, hit a land. It's definitely good. I can play Twin Blade Geist and hold up Fierce Retribution to kill a Gargantua. Hit them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 this turn. Puts them to 6 life. Doesn't kill them next turn. Is there any way that I can kill them in 2 swings? Don't think so. If I play Heron Blessed Geist now and take all the damage on the crackback, I hit them for 4. Oh no, it does kill them in 2 swings. I'm really bad at math. It hits for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Puts them to 5. I think I go for it. Go for dead in 2 swings here. We put the Double Strike on the token so that they can't kill all of our power with 1 removal spell. Because Markov Waltzer's basically a 3 power flyer. Because it's giving +1 to 2 of our flyers. So if I put the Double Strike on it as well, and then they just kill the Waltzer, then I'm down to a single 1/1 flyer, but now if they kill the Waltzer, then I'm down to a single, like 2/1 flyer, because it has Double Strike. Alright, they're dead on board if they can't kill anything here, or they can't play any flyers. It's possible Vampire Slayer would have been a little safer in case they have another Rottide Gargantua. But if they have another Rottide Gargantua, I wouldn't be able to lethal them either way, but I'd lose my whole board if they do. So maybe Slayer was better than holding up Fierce Retribution. Fierce Retribution, I take less damage, like, in the here and now. But I have 19 life, I can just take all this. So I probably should have played Vampire Slayer to play around. Like a Rottide Gargantua. Each player sacks 2 creatures. Exploit. Alright, Fellstinger is the play. It's another zombie, so that's 2 of them. Sack the Catapult Fodder. Who's going to draw 2 and lose 2? They're going to draw 2, lose 2. They're down to 3 now. And they're just going to scoop them up. That is going to be game. Some more victories off some nice aggressive flyers. Markov Waltzer really showing up and doing some very good things. So I think that was probably the biggest the biggest mistake during the draft, the biggest thing that could have went differently to improve this deck. Markov Waltzer has been taking names today, so I think passing that Markov Waltzer Pack 2 was probably incorrect because we weren't 100% locked into green or black at the time. Our second color was still pretty open, and I think I didn't realize that enough. And Markov Waltzer is quite a strong card, as we have seen from our gameplay today from the Markov Waltzer that I took in Pack 3. So either way, though, the deck's working out super well. Luckily for us, we are 4-0, guaranteeing that we're pretty much breaking even. 1,400 gems and 3 packs out of the 1,500 gem event. That is where it's at, but if we can win any more games here, that is where we're going to be getting some profit out of this draft, and that would be super sweet. So we'll see how long we can keep it going as we head into round 5. Here we are for game 5, our opponent's on the play. This hand's a tiny bit high on land, but overall, still pretty solid. We have both of our colors. We have a 2-drop and a 3-drop to start things off. So as long as we draw into a few more plays, we should be fine here. Decent way to start. Our opponent is on blue-red, which is a pretty fun, pretty spicy archetype in this format. I'm gonna get greedy. Should I get greedy? I'm probably supposed to just play Vampire Slayer, but it's the only creature I have left in my hand that actually triggers Welcoming Vampire for a card draw. So I'm gonna get greedy. I'm probably supposed to just roll out, but top decking Welcoming Vampire makes me want to try to draw cards off of it. But blue-red can be an archetype with a lot of cards that get some value off of casting instants and sorceries. A lot of cards that damage your opponent or do extra damage. Stuff like that. There's ones that make 1/1 flyers when you cast instants and sorceries. So it can do some pretty wild stuff. Could also just be blue-red good stuff. Our deck is kind of just red-white good stuff. We played against white-blue good stuff. The archetypes don't have to be incredibly well-defined. Yep, some of the just blue exploit shenanigans here, some of the blue sacrifice shenanigans, the Wretched Throng searching for more copies of Wretched Throng when it dies, the Stitched Assistant sacrificing the Wretched Throng to scry one and draw a card. So our opponent is just setting up with some really good value plays here. Let's drop a Vampire Slayer and see if we draw another 2-mana card. That would be awesome. Did not. It's another land. I'm happy to have a Lacerate Flesh because we are going to need some blood tokens here to get out of this mana flood. Okay, Stitched Assistance coming on in. I am happy to race. Anything they want to hit me with, I'll just take the damage with the Traveling Minister going on. Ooh, Resistance Squad, which is another human to draw a card. And then if I draw into another 2-power less creature, we can run that out as well. So let's draw a card. Flame Blessed Bolt. That's very good against disturbed creatures like Binding Geist or death triggers like Wretched Throng. Don't think I need to just use that to kill something right now. I guess if I kill Binding Geist, then I can be okay with attacking it, because otherwise they could put a Spectral Binding on my flyer and stop a lot of damage here. I think I'm cool with a Wretched Throng trigger, getting the Throng out of the way for cards like my 3/2 Resistance Squad to attack in. So let's exile the card that would give them a pseudo removal spell if it dies, the Spectral Binding. See if they have a 3rd copy of Wretched Throng. It's a card that gets better the more copies you have. I've had a few decks back when this format was new that had 5 or 6 copies of Wretched Throng, and that's always a lot of fun. They've got at least 3 copies, which is pretty great. 3 is that cutoff where I'd say it's pretty good. 3 or more. The more the merrier. Alright, they're still racing. I'll take that damage. Hovering over our creatures here, so they probably have removal, and they certainly do. A Diver Scab lets them sack a creature to put one of our creatures back on top of our library, so we're just going to redraw the Welcoming Vampire and play it again. That is fine with me, because it is our best card by a lot. Gain our Traveling Minister life and pass the turn. Lacerate Flesh only does 4 damage, so I can't actually get through a Diver Scab with it, but I can if they attack me with it. They may have a bunch more interaction now. There's a Wretched Throng. And an Alluring Suitor. Now they just got multiple blockers. Let's Lacerate the Alluring Suitor. And get a Blood Token. Now they just have a 2/1 on the board. I guess let's buff the Trampler here and send everybody in. One of these dies to the Wretched Throng, but that's fine. Clears it out of the way for other stuff later. Block the Trampler, so we hit for as much damage as possible this turn, putting them down to 5. And we get another Blood Token from our Trampler thing. Let's see what we hit. Find a Nurturing Presence. That's a very good one here. Very, very good one. It's going to give us another flyer, and it's going to give whatever we put it on +1/+1 every turn that we play a creature. And if they don't kill Welcoming Vampire, that flyer is small enough to trigger Welcoming Vampire, letting us draw another card. Nurturing Presence is beautiful on this board. They have another Wretched Throng. The Throng train doesn't stop. They had one that they naturally drew. That's always the saddest. The more Wretched Throngs you have, the more likely you are to just draw one naturally. But it never feels good. Because you're always like, no, I'm supposed to draw these for value. Alright, I don't have lethal, but if I draw another creature, I will have lethal here. So draw any creature and we're lethal. There we go. Fearful Villager will do it. It's 4 damage in the sky. Play another creature. And that's 5 damage in the sky. That's going to be our 4th victory, I believe. No, I think that might be our 5th victory now. We are just blazing through these games with this nice, aggressive Boros deck. Yeah, there you have it. That is our 5th victory. We're now in the money, getting more gems than it costs to play in the event, and we're only 2 wins away from a potential maximum prize out, a 7-win run. So see if we can't find a couple more wins before we lose 3 times. And yeah, see if we can't keep the train rolling heading into Game 6. Here we are now on the play for Game 6 with an excellent hand. Drogskull Infantry into Nurturing Presence into Markov Waltzer. I should have played the Mountain turn 1 in case they had a 1-drop I wanted to bolt, which Traveling Minister would fit the bill, so I do get punished here. Actually really hard, because now I have Welcoming Vampire. I was just playing instinctually there, just dropping the land, passing the turn, getting things rolling, and going to play out super poorly, because now we're not going to Flame Blast Bolt for quite some time. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll end up playing something that's much more important to bolt. Well, Dorothy's terrifying, but can't bolt Dorothy. Sack it at the end of combat. You can put an aura onto a thing whenever this creature attacks, create a 4/4 flyer, tapped and attacking, and then sack it. Okay, so if I attack in, we trade into Dorothy, and then they can recast Dorothy onto Traveling Minister, and then I can just kill Traveling Minister. So I think I do attack in here. They're probably just going to hit me for 5. And then keep that in the grave for a while. I'm getting our Welcoming Vampire down before I Nurturing Presence so we can get the extra card draw off of it. I'm not going to hold Flame Blast Bolt up right now because I would like to be able to just bolt whatever they try to put the Dorothy onto. Okay, are they going to attack with Dorothy this turn? They are. They're going to send in the 5 damage. Okay, so now I can just play off curve to hold up Flame Blast Bolt, which I think is fine with me. Drop the 3-drop and hold up the bolt. They're going to play a Heron of Hope. I'm probably going to put Dorothy onto the Heron of Hope, which I can't actually do anything about because the Heron's going to be too big. So we got to draw into something else here. Let's get rid of the Traveling Minister, I guess. I think I might just die here. Play a Nurturing Presence, try to top deck a land. So I can play another creature here too. I guess Markov Waltz is probably better, because even if I don't draw land, it's going to be solid. Double Nurturing Presence might be able to outrace our opponent. Be hard, but it's possible. They just block Markov Waltzer here. Throw Dorothy onto Heron of Hope. They hit me for like 6 damage or something. If anything could outrace our opponent, it'd be double Nurturing Presence. Okay, there's Dorothy's Retribution. Here we go. They're going to give the Heron lifelink to gain 3 off this attack. They hit for 6 and gain 3. Or they hold the 2 mana up to play another creature. Alright, hit for 6, gain 3. So we're not dead next turn. But they're at 17, which is so much life. So I can hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus Markov Waltzer is 6, 7. Plus double Nurturing Presence is 8, 9, 10, 11. Not lethal, but could probably lethal them in 2 attacks. I think I put Nurturing Presences onto the Flyers, just put 1 on each. Let's see if we draw into anything here. Do I have any 1-mana cards I could draw into left in my deck? I have 2 Traveling Ministers in there, so I should hold a white source up. Oh, and I can't draw another card. I only draw 1 in a turn from Welcoming Vampire, that's fine. Alright, I think I actually miscounted my damage. I think I added 1 to the damage. Yeah. 10 damage, not 11. But still, it's 2 attack lethal. They hit for 6 here unless I chump. +3/+3. Are there any +3/+3 combat tricks in this format? They're going to be at 10 life on the crackback. You know what? I'll find out the bad way if there's any +3/+3 combat tricks. I'll find out by dying to a +3/+3 combat trick if there is one. Geralt means they're dead, right? They've got 1 blocker on the ground. I could blow it up, and they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not lethal. So blowing up Geralt is not the answer. If I play a creature, they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus Markov Waltzer is 6, 7. Plus Nurturing Presences is 8, 9. That's also not lethal, so I need to Fearful Villager, and I have to draw land to lethal them. Alright. Lords of Random Number Generation, give me another land. And there you go. That will be lethal. Thank you, Nurturing Presence. Very cool. We are now 6-0, completely undefeated in the event so far. Heading into the final boss with 3 rounds in the chamber. Feels good to get lucky. Here we are now for game 7, what may be the final game. We've got a slower hand here, but it's still pretty good. We have both of our colors all set up. We have Twin Blade Geist to start things off. We've got interaction, and we have an endgame card. Definitely looking to draw some 1 to 3 mana creatures throughout the early turns here, and hoping not to draw any more lands after that 5th one that we now have for Falconwrath Celebrants. Unfortunately, that's 2 land draws in a row here, so not an ideal start to the game. But Falconwrath Celebrants, once we hit 5 mana, can help dig out of any mana flood if it keeps going on. There's a Flame Blessed Bolt from our opponent on our Disturb creature, which is always excellent. That is 3 for 3 on just lands drawn this game off of the 4-lander keep. Ill-Tempered Loner. Very, very strong bomb. We are now 4 for 4 on land draws. We'll imprison the Ill-Tempered Loner. Problem is that it's still going to have a very good ability at night. So during the day, whenever it's dealt damage, it deals damage to any target. Doesn't matter if it's pacified. But at night, if I damage any of their cards, then I'll be taking damage equal to the number of damage that I dealt, or they can deal that damage anywhere. So we do need to exile that with Sigarda's Imprisonment eventually. We have drawn a non-land card. It's a Nurturing Presence on turn 5 with no creatures on board, so not anything I want to do right now. I could spend my 5 mana to exile this Avenger and get the blood token, or just play a Celebrance. I'm just going to play a Celebrance for now and take another hit from Runebound Wolf. The reason is that if I block Runebound Wolf, then it will be dealt 4 damage, which means that Hellpack Avenger will deal 4 damage to my Celebrance. So I need to wait till I exile the Avenger to actually block with this. Diagraph Scavenger, no creatures in grave means it's just a 2/3 death touch, and we draw into a Fierce Retribution. I can exile the enchanted creature at instant speed, so now they can't afford to attack in with Runebound Wolf, or I could just exile Avenger and block it, which means they probably just attack with Diagraph Scavenger, which I can Fierce Retribution. They're gonna go for it here. Let's see. This is gonna play poorly for me. There's some kind of trick I'm not thinking of here. They're gonna Flame Blast Bolt my Celebrance. Okay, so they're just gonna use a removal spell. It's a 2-for-1 trade. Removal spell plus the wolf to kill the Celebrance then, which is fine by me. Now we use these blood tokens to try to take over the game. 5 damage on board is a lot, but if we can draw into any creatures here, any of our creatures are big enough to trade into the Belligerent Guest. I guess not the Traveling Ministers. We do find a Welcoming Vampire, which I really would rather not trade into the Belligerent Guest. I guess I have 7 mana, which means I can play Vampire, Nurturing Presence, and Fierce Retribution. I'm just going to guarantee I get a card draw off the Welcoming Vampire here, even if they kill it with Sorcery Speed removal next turn, so we're just going to slam Nurturing Presence down. And then I'm going to hold up Fierce Retribution. And we draw into Resistance Squad, which is big enough to trade into Scavenger, so I think I retribute the guests so they don't get any blood tokens. And then I'll trade Resistance Squad into Scavenger. Down to 8. But they're playing off the top, and we have 2 blood tokens and a Welcoming Vampire. So we have the setup to draw better than our opponent. Do have Edgar's Awakening, which is basically they just drew another copy of Belligerent Guest. Another Nurturing Presence is beautiful, because we don't want to block with Welcoming Vampire, so let's just load it up and send it in to get racing here. Drawn to another Nurturing Presence. I'm going to save that one for next turn. So that I actually do draw the card off of it. Yeah, let's just use blood tokens right now. And I think I trade into Guest. Well, I guess I could give them 1 blood token. They get 1 blood token either way I block here. I stop just as much damage, though, either way also, so I guess it really doesn't matter much. The trample means either way I'm taking 3 damage. I guess I might as well kill the blood token producer. I could put the spirit on the guest too, and then they don't get a blood token, but then I lose another spirit. I mean, how much am I going to hit them for next turn? +3/+3? 5, 6, 7? If I lose this, it's not going to be lethal. It'll be lethal in 2 attacks. I could. I'll let them have the blood. Have I drawn my bolt yet? I haven't drawn my Flame Blast Bolt yet, so I guess I should try to do that. I should have done this before I declared the block. Okay, I didn't draw the bolt. And I'm not going to discard that, so this is how we'll block. Down to 5. And they have a blood token to dig themselves. Theoretically, they should have some extra lands by now. Yep. Discard a swamp, draw a card. Slam down a Hungry Ridgewolf. 2/2 on the ground. Draw for turn. Find a land. Drop a Nurturing Presence. Copy number 3. Let's go. Okay. Another land means I play the Heron of Hope and I hold up the lifelink ability. And if I get to survive another turn, then they're dead. 8. Probably try pretty hard to survive another turn. I mean, I guess a block with a Heron of Hope and a life gain trigger means I'd be at basically 8 on blocks. We'll send one of these in. We'll play it pretty safe, though. I feel like I could probably attack with just Welcoming Vampire and they'd still be very dead next turn. Almost any draws. Alright, Falconwrath Celebrants, and they scoop them up. That's going to be a nice, crisp, clean 7-0 run for the return to Innistrad Crimson Vow Premier Drafts. Not much to say here. Excellent stuff from the deck all around. Huge, huge work from our Welcoming Vampire. We drew that in a majority of our games. Or we drew it in many of our games, and it was always an incredible card draw engine, especially with that 1-2 punch, as we saw particularly heavily in the final game, the 1-2 punch of Welcoming Vampire with all the Nurturing Presences, because every time we cast one, we draw a card, and when we load them up, whenever we play a creature, it just becomes absolutely massive, since I didn't want to be blocking with it anyway. So that was just excellent stuff from the deck overall. I think pretty much every card we got to draw and cast at least one time, which always feels great. Everything got to put in work. We even got a blood token off Belligerent Guest one time. Got some menace damage in with Fearful Villager. We got some great plays with Markov Waltzer. Got a Heron of Hope down that last game to help defend us. We got to cast, I think, everything in the deck at least one time, and it all worked out real well. Even the really mediocre Vampire Slayer type cards, they did hit the board and attack as 2/2s. I don't think we ever got a Vampire Slayer down that we needed for resistance squads, though, which was the idea. So that's a little sad. That was definitely the weakest link is the Vampire Slayers, but love this deck. Played out really well, far beyond my imagination. So I thought this was probably a 4-3, 5-3 on average, like a solid deck that could get us our gems back probably. But just played out super, super well. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you have those really rough runs, and sometimes you just cruise right on through, even with just a solid deck, not an incredible or broken deck or anything. Sometimes the stars just align, everything works out well. So that'll do it. That is going to be a 7-0 run for the return to Innistrad Crimson Vow, but we'll be playing some more in the near future. These are going to be on Arena for the next week, so I'll be flopping back and forth. We'll be doing more March the Machine Premier drafts, as that is the newest set, but we'll be swapping them out with Innistrad Crimson Vow drafts, basically like every other day as well, because I do like variety drafting. I like drafting as many different formats as possible, so that should be pretty fun in the coming days. And obviously, in the next couple weeks, we're going to have the new Lord of the Rings set coming to Arena if you're interested in that. So great things coming. But for the here and now, for today, that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons very much for supporting this channel, as well as you for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.